Hello, world, and welcome to another voice note from France, a podcast where I look beyond the Instagram highlight reel to find out what it's really like to start a new life in another country. On today's episode, we're staying in France, but I'm taking you down south to talk to Nikieta, a Trinidadian PhD student who started as a language assistant, just like I did. In this episode, we'll look at how she made that pivot to pursue her dream and how she took an unconventional route to do it. We'll also touch on how important it is to have hobbies and other goals besides the one you came to a new country to pursue. So if you're interested, keep listening.
Yes, let's begin, ma'am.
See, I don't know about your bandwidth, but I believe in you. I believe in what network you're using. You're using service.
Free. I don't even believe in free.
That's sad. See, SFR, well, no, SFR told me I had to believe in them because SFR was already in the building, so I had to believe in SFR. But free low-key my enemy. Free is low-key an op though. Because whenever I have free on my phone, and whenever I try to use mobile data, free doesn't always have me. So,
Mm.
okay. So, hi Nikita.
Hello.
I say this if the people can't see you. Even though, like I said, I think that you should be repping Colgate. You and another person I know have perfect teeth, perfectly white teeth, and I think that Colgate needs to call y'all. I'll drop the IG after so you can see how perfect her teeth are. I'm trying to help you get a bag.
Okay, sure.
So, Nikita, I'm going in full transparency. I'm going to share with the audience that, we tried to record this episode before. I personally was not happy with it. I realized that I made some mistakes in terms of my podcast style. Podcasting really has taught me a lot of things. I haven't been doing it for very long, but podcasting so far has actually taught me a couple of things. And I realized one of the things that I realized that I really had to kind of let go of the reins a little bit because in our last episode, I came with all these questions and X, Y, and Z, and it was like, now I've learned, let people tell their own stories. I might edit this out, we'll see, but podcasting has taught me a lot. And it's the reason that I wanted to come back here and do this a second time. So thank you for coming back for a second time.
You're welcome.
But let me at least start with, I think this is one of my original questions. How did you end up in France? Who are you? How did you end up in France? And what do you currently do?
Hello, I'm Nikki. My close friends and family call me Nikki. And what was the question?
What do you do? How did you end up in France? Maybe give us a little bit of history about yourself, whatever you're comfortable to share.
Okay, yes. I came as an English language assistant. And do I need to explain what that is? No, not
No,
really.
because they already know, and hopefully
Okay.
they read my blog, so they have an idea of what of what that is. If they don't,
Okay.
JamaicanFrancophile.com will tell you all about it. Go look it up. Shameless plug.
Okay,
So yes.
perfect. So I came to France as an English language assistant, but before coming here, I always had the intention of doing other things apart from or in conjunction with being an assistant. Uh, so I was an assistant for about 3 years. And before coming to France, I had the intention of doing my PhD as well. So during that time that I was an assistant, I was looking for schools to apply to do my PhD. It was a long process, but eventually I found a school and a thesis supervisor who believed in my research and was willing to take me on. And I'm actually doing research on the role of the English language assistant in improving the oral competencies of students in lycée professionnel, which is a pretty unique take because there's no scientific research on the English language assistant, even though the program has existed um, for several decades. I think it's been in existence for around 100 plus years.
Yeah.
It's when it started. I mean, it's evolved since then, but there
Yeah,
has
I think
never
when it
been
first
any
started, it didn't
scientific.
include us. It didn't include people from
Yeah.
our countries.
Yeah. But yeah, so I'm happy that my thesis would be the first scientific publication on the English language assistant in France. So,
I think that's really interesting. And I mean, I love the idea of that topic because obviously you're taking what was from your experience, like
hmm
you're using your experience and you're turning it into like, an actual study because, obviously you have this question. And I kind of wanted to know a bit more of like, how did you decide that that was what you wanted to focus on?
well, that's a long process. It's been a
This
long
is why we
process
come on podcasts. This is why we
because
come on mic.
initially, well, I did my master's in international relations. So initially, I was all get up to do my PhD in international relations, but I realized I was forcing myself to be passionate about something that I really wasn't passionate about.
Yeah.
Um, and I did my undergraduate degree in French. French is a foreign language. And I always had a love for languages. And being an assistant, an English language assistant, I felt the pull and I felt like God told me to go back to what I originally um was passionate about, what I originally liked. And that confirmation in conjunction with my experience as an English language assistant and realizing that there is no research in this field. Also, with my experience as an English language assistant in lycée professionnel, I really enjoyed my time there and interacting and discussing with the teachers about my research topic. All of that played a part in helping me to decide that this is what I wanted to research.
That's very journalistic of you. I actually, no, I really love it because I feel like a lot of, and this is just the journalist in me, maybe, or the wannabe journalist in me, because when I hear that, I kind of think about, I feel like that's how a lot of investigations kind of come about. Like you hear something and you're like, what is this thing that just kind of irks you and bugs you that you're just like, now I have to like dig, I have to dig out and find
Yeah,
out more.
yeah.
Um, but I wanted to go back because you said that you had studied French like as a foreign language for your undergraduate degree.
hmm
Um, and then you studied international relations. And I'm not surprised that that was your trajectory because I feel like coming from the Caribbean, sidebar, I don't think I said this. Nikita's from Trinidad. However, I probably would have put that in the intro. Um, but Nikita's from
You can hear
Trinidad.
it in my accent.
Listen, Sean is also on the podcast, and Sean don't sound like you, which is what I told him. So
That's true. Yeah.
So that's, that doesn't mean anything, but I would have put in the intro that you're from Trinidad. But coming from the Caribbean, I feel like that is like the natural progression because when you get into languages, there aren't really a lot of options. And from my perspective, at
hmm
least, coming from the Caribbean, it's like either you're going to teach or you're going to go into like
Yeah.
international relations, diplomatic, quote unquote diplomatic, probably like
Yeah.
Ministry of Foreign Affairs type thing, government in a
Yeah.
sense. So there really isn't any other option. So I'm not really surprised. And, you said you were forcing yourself to be passionate about something you weren't passionate about. And I feel like maybe that
hmm
was based off of your environment because you're like, well, these are my only options. I better like it.
Yeah.
But coming to a developed country or coming to at least a bigger country where you have more options, that's where you can kind of, start to think bigger of
hmm
like, what do I actually want to do with my life? And now that I have the
hmm
options to do them.
hmm Yeah.
That's just me
Yeah.
conjecture.
Because, and honestly, why I chose my master's program, it's because it was the most affordable in UE. And I did a minor in international relations. So it wasn't like I was going to have to start from scratch and zero. So I was like, okay. And in terms of languages, there were not really many options for masters. Um, yeah, and yeah, and the international relations one, a master's program was the cheapest one. So it was a matter of cost efficiency. practicality and yeah.
Well, I have a question now, but this is just for me. Because I thought education in Trinidad was free, or is it only free for like your bachelor's degree?
Free for bachelor's degree. Yeah.
Okay, okay. See,
And I
I come
think
from a
we
country
get
where education is not
half
free.
of, oh.
I can only imagine.
Yeah. I was shocked about that because what I don't know, I went to this camp with this retreat with with some Caribbean other Caribbean nationals. And I think the person was from Antigua or I think it was Antigua, if I'm not mistaken. And I was just talking about, oh yeah, in Trinidad, I'm going to university and so I so and then she was telling me, oh, you have to pay for this. And I'm like, isn't
Hey,
education free? And I was just like
money.
shocked. I was shocked that wait, no, it's not free in all these countries.
No,
I
sweetheart.
was
No, it is
like,
not. Listen, you you should hear how much my father says that he paid for my law school education, which, let me not remind him because this might
mhm,
make him upset. Thinking about my first episode with my friend Michaela, who's Jamaican, she moved to Japan. And one of the
mhm,
things we say in that episode is that, let's say he gets up and decide I'm going to like go back to Jamaica. It's like, all right, go back to Jamaica and do what? I was thinking about that, and I was thinking about the fact that essentially, like, there aren't really a lot of options to go somewhere else because essentially I'm already in one of the countries that has the quote booming economy in the
mhm.
Caribbean, right? The only country I would say is, higher than that, I would say is Trinidad because you have oil. You have oil and you have money, which Jamaica does not have. Um, and then I was also thinking about Barbados, but then I was like, but then again, Barbados is a smaller population and I think a smaller economy. Because I'm like, what does Barbados really have? But I don't know any Bajans out there who would like to educate me or come on the podcast. Please come and correct me.
But
Hell,
Jamaica's beautiful.
and
And it's beautiful.
what am I trying doing that? What am I gonna doing that?
Beauty attracts people to it.
Yeah, that's why we have a tourism industry. But that and we're getting the tourism industry is not what it used to be. That's a whole, oh Lord, this could be a whole different podcast. Let me
Okay,
come
all
back.
right.
Let me come back to the topic. So yes, Nikita, we were talking about you and your decision to come to France. So I would assume, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I assume that you came here much like, every other Caribbean person who finds himself in France, through this program, which I think is the primary way people from where we're from end up in France now. Um,
Probably.
came here. I think so. People don't just get up and move to France anymore. I think this is how they got here, and then they said, "I like it
Not
so."
necessarily. I've met a couple of Trinis. Well, the Trinis that I've met since I've been here,
Hmm.
um, besides Sean, and none of them came through the assistant program.
Okay. I only know one other person who you're talking about who I'm like, yeah, I know he didn't. But
Mm.
I mean how well, okay, my follow-up question is, are they of our generation? Then again, you and I are
No, they're
apparently
not. They're not from our generation. They're older.
okay, well there you go. That's my point. I think in this generation, I think that they primarily come through the assistance program and then they just don't leave. Because I know plenty of Jamaicans who just came here, but they're much older who came here just for other reasons, basically.
Mm,
So I think that it's different. But I think no, this is kind of like how Caribbean people,
mhm.
Caribbean young people at least end up in France. So I assume you came here basically, you came on this program, you're thinking, okay, come in, improving my language skills. Was your intention to stay in France? Like you knew that you're going to stay in France, or was there
Yep.
some part of you that was like, yeah, I might go back
No.
to Trinidad?
No. From no, I always knew. I told my friend, one of my friends in Trinidad, who came, I think the same year as me, but she went back to Trinidad. Um, that yeah, I'm going to live. I'm going there to live, and I think I came to France before the initial. I don't want to give the time frame, but
Okay.
um, I had I visited France before, and I said to myself, the next time I come back, I'm going to stay. It's to live.
Next time I come back, I'm not leaving.
Yeah. No, it's been a desire I wanted to, and it was kind of more than a desire. I felt like it was more of a calling that I had to be here.
Hmm.
First, yeah,
Well, what
I
was
needed
it?
to accomplish certain things um that has been ordained for my life that could not be accomplished in Trinidad.
Okay. Um, so what was it about that first visit that kind of had you feel like, yeah, this is the place for me?
I don't know. It was just like a feeling. I don't know how much more to to the how much to this how to really describe it or to put it into words. It was just more of a feeling and like a knowing. You know, sometimes you don't really understand, but it's just like you know that you're in the place you're supposed to be.
Okay. That's pretty nice. All
Yeah.
right. Well, I'm gonna like pivot a little bit because now, we know that you worked as a language assistant and then you decided, okay, well, you already knew you wanted to pursue a PhD. Can you take us through that journey of, you want to do a PhD, but actually getting to start your PhD because it's not as simple as, you just apply for a program and now you're in. Or maybe for other people in other fields, it was that simple, but what was it like for you?
Well, when you're doing a PhD in France, the first thing you need to do is find a director or directrice de thèse, even before you can sign up. So you have to look for email teachers, and it was difficult for me because I knew no one in my field here. And I I I was just going out on a limb and a promise and a hope and a faith, and
Aren't we all?
so you have to find a thesis supervisor first. Then so I found my thesis supervisor through an association that I'm a part of. Then after finding your thesis supervisor, well, you need to send in your research proposal. She has to validate it. He or she, I'm saying she because my thesis supervisor is a female. Uh, they have to validate it. And then only then you can sign up. But I think the hardest part is finding your thesis supervisor before being able to sign up and having them accept your proposal.
Yeah, because when I met you, however many years ago that was, we're not giving a time frame, and I hope I haven't, ratted you out in previous episodes. But when I met you, you were
Wait,
still in the
what?
process. Because we're not giving specific times, but I'm hoping that I didn't allude to when I would have met you. No, I think okay, low key, I think I would have, but it wouldn't have alluded to when you came to France, is when I met you. So that's different. That's a different time.
Mm,
So that is on me. Um, that's me dating myself. But
okay.
I remember when I met you, you were still in the process of, finding, a thesis director, and I never really understood because
What? I was?
I were you? Am I wrong? Or if it wasn't when I
I
met you, it
think
would have been maybe
so.
a little bit after. I've known you for a while.
I didn't know you when I was finding a thesis supervisor.
You hadn't
Oh
found one
wait,
yet when I met
yes.
you.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Yeah,
What?
because you didn't have one yet when I met you. Baby, this is a long
Oh,
couple years ago.
oh yeah. All right. We met each other so long ago.
Don't make it sound like that. You make it sound old. We met you so
No,
long ago. I could barely recall.
I can barely recall, but it's so
All
coming
coming
back
back to
to
me. Okay,
me.
let me stop now before Celine come knock on my door. Listen, you and Sean are the most musical guests trying to get me demonetized before I even see a coin. Goodness. Anyways, but yeah, when I met you, you were still in the process of searching. You hadn't found, and I remember you were, going through all of that. And I did not understand. I mean, of course, I was not up to date on the PhD process, especially not on like, a personal, like in France in a new country. But like I had known people who have done PhDs before. On some level that was my life. I didn't know what the process was, but I didn't expect that the process was so hard. And I guess I want to
Mm,
know, number one, is it because of the field that you're studying in? Because you're not studying in like the sciences. So
mm.
I wanted to know if is it because you're not studying the sciences and like what I want you to go into more detail on like how you managed to find your program director and kind of like what were the unique struggles you went through.
Okay, so I searched for my thesis supervisor in the region that I was staying in at that time. And one of the teachers that I used to work with, who I used to work with, in the lycée professionnel when I was an assistant, um, told me to get into contact with this person. So I did. I contacted that person at the university and asked her if she could be my supervisor. And she said she would love to, but she doesn't have the qualifications to be my supervisor. Because to be a supervisor, you need to have something called an HDR, which is habilité de diriger les recherches. So
Okay.
basically, you pass, um, you have to you have to be qualified in order to um to be able to be a thesis supervisor. So this person was just a maître de conf. So there's maître de conf and HDR. So she didn't have her HDR, so she couldn't supervise me.
We'll not
So
be
I was
translating
sad.
any of these terms for anybody, so y'all just gonna have to listen hard.
So I was sad. And so I was like, okay, I want to do my PhD. I decided I'm sticking with languages. I'm not dabbling in the international relations again. So what else can I do to find a thesis supervisor? Because this was the ideal candidate to be my supervisor, and now she can't because she just can't. She wants to,
Yeah.
but she can't.
Yeah, exactly.
So I decided to try to think outside of the box and decided to look for associations in my field. So I'm in the field of didactique des langues. So I
Language
joined an
didactics.
association.
I'll give y'all that.
Yeah. So I joined an association um, that I'm French is in my brain. What is the English word for this? Um,
This is also something we
I
experienced, Sean.
I joined an association that regroupe different researchers and teachers within the field of English language didactics. And in the group, in the association, and on their page, there was the list of members, and I just look through the list of members and see which candidate, or I'm saying candidate, like if I'm interviewing the person, but see which teacher, which director would be most suitable for my research. And I think I emailed one or two or three, I don't remember. Um, but I think only one of them got back to me, and
Mhm.
it was her. And yeah, that's how
And the rest
that's
is
how
history.
yeah.
And we'll be back after these messages. Okay, so Nikita, you just gave us like, what I think is the broad strokes of like, doing a PhD in France, which I think that anybody who's interested, it's worth considering because, hmm, okay, let me put a giant asterisk next to this because before I think France was touted as, a cheaper option to go and pursue your studies. Not so much anymore due to like recent legislation. But some universities that has not applied to. So if you're interested in studying in France, it still is a viable option. But studying, no, they didn't change for studying for a doctorate. So, you know, you can actually still come and study for a doctorate at a very cheap, a couple hundred euros. Um,
Mhm.
per year. So that's still if anybody who's listening is interested, consider France. Not me trying to boost the French migration rate, but it's an option. And you're doing your PhD in French, right?
Yes, I'm writing in French.
Not really why, but how is that going?
It's going. I mean, it's fine because um, one of the role of the thesis supervisor is also to make sure that everything flows well in terms of your writing. But I mean, I think I have a pretty decent level of French,
I would agree.
so it's okay.
I'm trying to ascend to that level. Yes. Another part that I also wanted to bring up from your interview that I found was really interesting was that you essentially like you went outside of the box basically,
hmm
in order to find like, the thing that you wanted. And I want to talk about as well as your goals, other goals that you came in to work with and stuff, because I know that like you do other things. I don't know if I should mention them or not because you might not appreciate it. So I'll wait for your permission later. But I think that it's very interesting that like you went outside of the box because I think that one that can be difficult. You kind of have this idea of like everything's supposed to go this way, and then when it doesn't go this way, you freak out, or maybe that's just me. But also, I think that France is a very difficult country to go. Well, let me not say difficult. The ideal is that you go the traditional way of doing things in France. Like France is
hmm
very much like there's a lot of bureaucracy and systems on how to do things. And it's kind of like if you don't do it this way, it's like it doesn't matter. I'm wondering if I'm making sense or if I have to give it a tangible example.
Yeah, maybe give an example.
Okay, so for example, I'm in journalism school and there's a lot of, if you want to get into journalism in France, you have to go through the whole process of going to an actual formal journalism school. And I didn't know before coming to France that it was quite as rigid because from where I come from, journalism school was I don't know, like it's just a part of humanities. It's not necessarily taken so seriously, you just, apply and go. Or, you can come in from another field. There are plenty of people who told me because I studied law, like, oh, it'll be easy for you to, get into journalism because there are a lot of lawyers who are journalists in Jamaica. That's a whole other discussion. But essentially, there wasn't like a strict idea of, oh, you have to go to journalism school or you have to go to a specific journalism school in order to get into journalism. But coming to France, that's when I saw that like the barrier to entry was a lot higher than than I was used to, whereby you have to go to, the concours, the entrance exam, sorry. But you have to go through concours and you have to maybe go to like a prépa before, for a year and you have to like do the exams and maybe you fail the exam and do it again. And, getting into like there are like 12 recognized journalism schools and a whole bunch of hoops. And of course, you finish that for the 12 years and, maybe you're doing apprentissage, an apprenticeship during that time or a stage and internship. And a lot of, like I said, a higher barrier to entry that I was used to. And I think that there are some systems in France that are like, you have to go through the traditional way, other way you can't get in. Because a lot of complaints that I've heard from, my classmates at least or other people in who are like kind of looking at that area is kind of like y you're blocking out people who, don't necessarily have the means to go into like journalism schools when it's like they could very well still be perfectly good journalists, but because you're so tied to you have to do it this way or the right way, you know, you can't get in
hmm
basically. So that's what I
hmm
mean.
Okay, I see what you mean. I think for some things, um, I suppose that might be true until a certain extent, but there are always exceptions, and you just have to you just have to hold on to what you want and hope that you fall on the right person, especially if it's something that you know that you're supposed to do. And for me, it was something that I knew I wanted to do, and I was called to do. I felt like I had a calling to do this. Um, and so I just held on to it, and eventually I came upon the right person. And I understand what you say about things being rigid. Um, however, I didn't I wasn't even aware of how rigid it was and how I don't like to use the word lucky. I would use the word blessed, how blessed I was in order to be able to sign up to do my PhD in the way that I did, because it's not the traditional way, as you said.
Yeah,
Usually because I did my master's in Trinidad. Hold on. I did my master's in Trinidad, and I did my master's in international relations, which is not the same field that I'm doing my PhD in. And I didn't realize that that was a problem generally, because
really.
my thesis supervisor accepted my research proposal. And, she didn't have a problem with the fact that I came from a different background. However, when after the fact, after being admitted into my PhD program, after speaking to colleagues after the fact, they were saying that if you've done a master's in a different field, you usually have to redo a master's in the same field that you would like to do your PhD in, which is often the case. And I didn't have to do that. I had even uh when I was interviewing for a job, one of the person asked me, so how come you were able to get through to do your PhD, seeing that you did your master's in a different field? I said, well, my I just submitted my proposal and my supervisor thought that it was good and she accepted it. And
Sounds so
and
simple.
yeah, because I wasn't aware that that was not the traditional way to do things, but it's just that that's the point of thinking outside of the box, and just knowing that eventually you'll fall upon the person that will accept your out of the box thinking, because not everyone will, but that just means that they're not for you.
Yeah, honestly. And you're even saying that, and I mean, it comes back to something that there are gonna be aspects of this life, of this kind of living abroad life that really is just, again, depending on, you, the listener, you can call it being blessed, you can call it being just, fate,
Mm.
luck, whatever it is you want to call it. I know that for you it's, blessing, you believe in God. But I'm just trying to, like, open the floodgates for everybody
Yeah,
else.
no,
But
no worries.
there's gonna be an aspect of it where it really is just like this thing happened because it happened. And it's going
Mm,
to feel very weird because there's not going to be any real sense to it. There's not going to be anything other than it happened because it happened.
mm,
And it wasn't in your control when it happened. It just happened when it was supposed to happen. But I find that very interesting. And I want to pivot a little bit to, I guess, other aspects of your life as well. Again, what you're comfortable with sharing. And kind of like making, well, acclimating here rather. So how have you managed to, because of course you came here, you worked as a language assistant, now you're studying, but studying isn't your whole life, obviously. And of course you have a job. Your job
currently
isn't your
now,
whole life.
yeah, it is. It's my whole life now. No, I'm okay. Well, it's most of my life.
That's a PhD for you folks. But I know you work and you study. Let me say that. But
Yeah.
like, how have you managed to like acclimate and I guess have a life for yourself that's something that, let me know how you feel. Are you satisfied with your life?
What a question.
What a question.
Um,
Well, see, here's the thing, because I didn't want to presume that you were happy. For all I know, you're over there sad and depressed and hate your life. So, are you
no, of
satisfied
course
with your
not.
life?
I know that the stage that I am at right now is where I should be. So I am happy, because I know that I'm growing, and that is cause for happiness. And even though I know it's not where I want to be as yet, I know that it's paving the way. So yeah, I would say that I'm happy. Uh, what was your question? Sorry, I have a goldfish
Ac-
memory right now. I'm sleepy, sorry.
Uh, I want to say that we're almost done. Let's see where this goes. Acclimating. How have you managed to acclimate here? And on some level, how have your other goals that I'm not going to say unless you want to share them, or your
Oh,
other
right,
activities, how
right.
is that, how has that been acclimating?
Right. One of the other major goals that I had before coming to France was in terms of fashion uh and just being in the field of fashion, whether it be designing or modeling. Uh, and I dabbled in it a little bit
Which now
when
I'm
I
going to say
was
that everybody should know Nikita's very tall. She's got the model body, and also she has a
right.
dress that she made that she has not sent me yet, that I've been asking for several years, and I still can't see the dress. Um Continue, please go on.
The dress is not, I don't even have the dress, right? The dress is still in my former city because
I can go to your former city and retrieve it. Just tell me where I need to go.
I don't
I'm
even know where
willing.
I need to go.
Tragic. Listen, there's that dress out there that she knows I want, and I've been telling her about wanting this dress. And oh no, can I see it?
No, you see, you distracted me, and now I forgot the question.
Yeah, that was the problem. Yes, your other goals, getting into fashion.
Right. Right. So one of my other major goals was being in the field of fashion, whether it be modeling or designing, and I dabbled in it when I was before I moved to my current region, just recreationally, because it's something that I wanted to do, uh, and I just try to do it in the ways that I knew how for the moment. Um, and I know that it's something that I still want to do and still have to do, but currently it has taken a back seat while I focus on my PhD because I have not touched a sewing machine in however long, because I just don't have the time. I think that goal would have to be for another season of my life because I know if I try to focus on both at the same time, I won't be able to give 100% to either. And I prefer to excel at them both. What, so if that means pursuing them at different stages, then yeah.
I find that very interesting, and I guess this is something we were talking about before, when we were off mic, but can you kind of talk about, I guess, the importance of, having these, well, I don't know if you'd consider sewing a hobby. I know that you said that you're not really at the moment pursuing it for money.
Oh,
I don't know if you want to
well,
one day. But what is the importance and how has that kind of contributed to your life as like, you're new in this, in this new country and kind of finding community? Has it helped you find a community or,
right.
you
Okay.
know,
Well, sewing, no, not particularly, because it's a solitary activity.
good point. I mean, you have to at some point meet people to model for you, so
But well, I hadn't gotten that far. Oh, I forgot to mention this, but at one point I was giving sewing classes in I shouldn't say where, but in France in a reputable fabric store.
in your former city, let's go with that, where we said
In
before.
my former city, which was a wonderful opportunity, and I was so grateful to have that experience. Um, and I know it wasn't for nothing. And when I'm finished with my PhD and this season, whenever this season, I could revisit that sewing fashion season at some point.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, for the moment, no. And I didn't really make connections while sewing, but I do other activities like dancing. Like I'm learning to dance salsa, and I've met people through that. I've also met people through roller skating. And I think it's important to have these hobbies because you just need to blow off steam. And it's important to just have something that you love doing, so so that it kind of rejuvenates you and re-energizes you to bring you back to that whole routine of work.
Yeah, I think the point that I want to emphasize with that, and maybe it's because only now I'm starting to re-enter my hobbies, re-explore my hobbies. It's something that I didn't really think about as, something that I really needed to do
Hmm.
because I think that and maybe this is just the general experience. It's like, you came to this country to study, or you came to this country to work, and you came to do this and that. But
Mhm.
it's like you can have a life, an enjoyable
Mhm.
life. You can have so much more. Like, and I feel like
Mhm.
that's why you came here, to do more, whatever that more looks like to you. And I'm using this because I'm now editing my cousin's episode, and that's what we were talking about, like finding your more, or that's what I had said. So, but you came here for more, and I feel like, you can still transplant and have those things, those enjoyable things that,
Mhm.
you liked and you were into, in your previous country, that maybe you felt like you had to let it go because you came here on a mission. You can still have a
Mhm.
mission and be driven to achieve your mission, but want a life and enjoy other things because while you're not sewing at the moment, because like you said, that would take up time and you wouldn't be able to fully dedicate to your studies, you still rollerblade, when you
Mhm.
can, and you still
Mhm.
salsa dance when you can. So it's
Mhm.
not like, and I would
Yeah,
argue that maybe that's made your life more enjoyable because you're able to find that
of
balance.
course. Of course it has. And I think of these activities not just as hobbies, but as a challenge as well for myself. Because I know we were speaking about this earlier about um, when I was younger, I was quite reserved and timid, and putting myself in a situation where I have to dance and make eye contact with people where it's kind of intimidating. I just use those events as an opportunity to push myself beyond my limits or to try to do it and to become more comfortable with making myself uncomfortable um, for the purpose of growth. So,
And I completely agree because I think that that's currently what I'm using my hobbies for as well. I feel like right now I'm just in a place where I said this to you off mic, where I'm also, making myself uncomfortable, and I'm just like challenging myself to do all the things that I felt like I couldn't do, or that I
mhm,
thought I couldn't do. I'm like, do them now, you know?
mhm.
I'm in that part of my life.
Thank you so much, Nikita, for agreeing to sit down and talk with me again. I think this episode was so much better, and I hope that the listeners agree. If you've made it this far, then I'd really appreciate if you left a like or a comment, maybe even subscribe to the podcast on the platform you're listening from. Those kinds of things really make my day, and they help me make better content. As always, thanks for listening.